Good morning. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you all for being here. Good morning to you. I have a question. So we're in the city of brotherly love, is that right? Dang it. I keep telling everybody I'm going to the city of brother. Okay, we're next door to the city of... Okay, so do you all know what those people over there do for a greeting? What's the brotherly love greeting? Yo. Yo, good morning. All right, so as Carol mentioned, I live in the foothills of the Himalayas in India. And of course, what's the traditional greeting over there, do you think? Namaste. So I would like you to tell me namaste like Americans do. Just do it like you would normally do it. Y'all are so serious. It's so cute. Everywhere I go, people are like, namaste, namaste. So I'll teach you how to do it the way that we do it in my hood in India. So when you pass somebody, when you're part of the village crew, you go, namaste, namaste. So you can do that. You feel the joy in that? The divine greeting in each other is a joyous, divine, hello, hello, I see you, I know you, hello, hello. So I send you those joyous greetings, namaste and good morning. All right, okay, so I have a lot to do, so I'm going to just jump right in, otherwise we're going to be here a while. I am going to talk to you today about love. Not because we're not in the city of brotherly love, but... I really did come here to talk about that. So, in particular, I'm going to answer a question. And the question is, if love is all we need, if love is all there is, then why hasn't love ever been enough to make our suffering go away? Why not? Good question. It's a good question. Thank you. So, I'm going to answer that question using a metaphysical event. As Carol mentioned, I've been having these mystical events now for 16 years. I didn't ask for it. This was never anything I sought out to do. I thought I was going to be a backup dancer for Michael Jackson. That's what I thought I was going to do. So, but the universe obviously had different plans for me. So the only thing that I have to share with people is the true sincerity of my experiences. I just have that genuine wisdom that comes to me, and that's all that I have to share. Now, because I'm not practiced at spiritual language and things like that, sometimes this sounds a little raw, sometimes it sounds a little piercingly intimate, sometimes it sounds messy, and that's perfectly fine, because that's the truth of what's inside of me. So just prepare yourself. All right, so we're going to answer the question. This metaphysical event is probably the most important metaphysical event that's ever happened to me in all my 16 years. I would say that all of the metaphysical events have essentially come down to this, and this is what I'm going to tell you about today. This metaphysical event began over the winter time, in the early parts of this year. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about this year on my tour. I leave India during monsoon season, which is July, August, September, and I come to the States and I tour during that time. So I was thinking about what I was going to be talking about this year, what I wanted to write about. I like to write and craft stories. And most importantly, I was just thinking about how I could be most helpful to people at this time in our world with my skills. And as I was thinking about this, I kept feeling blocked. It was sort of like a writer's block, but more like a deep life block. And so I kept trying to work around the block and under the block and over the block and through the block, and obviously I just kept feeling blocked. And in the early spring, I realized maybe the block is my work. So then I began to focus very deeply and genuinely on this sense of feeling blocked. In my meditation, in my prayer, in my contemplation, this is my whole life. And I just began to listen very, very carefully, very clearly, day in and day out. Is there something this block needs to show me or tell me or teach me? And on the morning of April 25th, at 3:30 in the morning at Tosamling Nunnery in India, I'm focusing very intensely on this sense of feeling blocked, and I encounter a being of light. This being of light is this enormous white light, indistinct shape, effusively loving, hysterically funny, and we don't talk enough about how playful, joyful beings are, the divine beings. So it's hysterically funny, and it has just come to help me. So after a period of laughing and crying in awe of this being, which often happens, I say to this light, to this source of love that's come to help me, can you help me understand this sense of being blocked? And the light extends itself into my stomach and says, it's here, unquestionably. So I look inside my stomach internally, and I can see what looks like a bowling ball, kind of this dense ball of block. And as I see it, I realize this is the core. This is like the fundamental block. And I'm trying to find words to ascribe to this block, and nothing's coming because it's so magnificent. And instead, an image opens up. And this image is the cosmos. And in this entire cosmos, it's nothing but galaxy after galaxy after galaxy of love, flowing in all of these magnificent directions. Every direction, it's nothing but love, everywhere, except one spot in the cosmos in which there is no love entering or exiting. And I can see that's the fundamental block in the cosmos. Wow. So I can see it, I'm aware of it, but I have no idea what it is. And so I say to this source of love, to this light, can you help me understand this block? And I wait and I wait and I wait. What I realize after quite a wait is that I can either, from the vantage point from which I'm viewing it, I can either focus on the light or I can focus on the block. But I can't do both at the same time, not from the vantage point where I'm standing. And right now, the block is seeking to be known. So I say to the light, thank you for the joy, thank you for getting me here, and it goes away. And now it is just me and this block. And as I focus on this block, I inquire, what is your nature? And immediately I hear separation. And right on the heels of that, I hear, oh, but I am more than that. I am also the cry for union. So this block is the separation from love and the cry for union with love at the same time. So I very naively say, how can this block be resolved? And immediately there's like this magnificent radiating force field around it, both protecting it and giving it life. So the idea of rejection, of separation, is the very thing that gives it its power, its fuel, its source. Okay, I don't want to reject it. I just want to understand it. So as I seek to just understand, I begin to unite with this block, letting it in more deeply, more deeply. And as I'm letting it in, I'm starting to get really angry, really deeply, anciently, defiantly angry. And I start to say, oh yeah, we don't want to talk about this, do we? Everybody loves talking about all that nicey, lovey stuff. Nobody wants to talk about this. I have to talk about this. I'm so pissed off. And as I'm feeling this sense of such deep anger, all that we label negative, that is born in the separation consciousness, begins to come at me. All of the words and concepts that we label negative: fear, judgment, self-loathing, blame, violence, war, poverty. The list is endless. It just keeps coming, coming. And now I'm holding this enormous field of that which we label negative. And as I'm holding this enormous field, I begin to see underneath every single one of these things that we label as negative, it is all just pain. It is just a different iteration of pain, every single thing. And as I hold this magnificent field of pain, I begin to feel at its base that it is profoundly sad. It is an entire base of sorrow. And as I hold very still in this sorrow, in this vast pain, I realize why it is so sad. It is because it is the nature of our pain to be rejected. As I hold all of this rejected pain, eons, the scale is unfathomable. Everything that is love in me comes rushing forward to heal it. Kindness, compassion, caring, concern, empathy, everything is just rushing forward earnestly to heal it. Can't even touch it. I can feel myself pulled, physically pulled forward so deeply, desperately wanting to heal this. Can't even touch it. And I begin to get really upset. Why not? Why can't the love in me heal the pain of separation in me? Isn't that what I'm crying out for? And then I look into the cosmos, and I literally see the cosmos cradle this block, like this. Nothing penetrating the boundary of that block. And I'm like, why? Why not? It's always surrounded by nothing but love. Why can't love heal the pain of separation from love? I don't understand. Why? And as I'm passionately trying to figure this out, the light returns. And the light says to me very quickly, so why can't you answer that question? I don't know. I have no idea why I can't answer that question. And again, very quickly, why can't you answer that question, Mary? This light is not concerned with the answer to the question of why love can't heal the pain of separation from love. It wants me to understand why I can't answer it. And I have zero clue. So as I'm standing there looking at this situation, really perplexed and feeling quite like a failure, all of the atoms and molecules in the cosmos, take in that scale. The atoms and molecules of the cosmos begin to fill in with light. All of this divine presence starts coming in everywhere. Every single speck of the cosmos fills in with divine presence around this block. And I hear, this is the work of the universe. And all of this divine presence is magnificently serious. And as I watch, the divine presence shows me that the dissolution of the block is an absorption process into the divine energies around it. And the way that they showed me looks like if you can imagine this block like a soap bubble. And if you pierce the boundary of the soap bubble, the essence of the emptiness it contains, poof, is just absorbed into the divine energies around it. That's exactly what it looked like. Piercing, poof, and then it's just absorbed. And the divine presence tells me that the absorption process is their work, but the piercing process is my work. And then, like watching my body in a movie, on a movie screen, they take my body through these very basic breathing and meditation and body movement exercises. And they tell me, this is my piercing process, and it's going to take place over several days. This is the first time in 16 years I've ever gotten explicit instructions. This is my piercing process. It will take place over several days. And as they're telling me this, I can feel so clearly this immense, pure kind of weightedness, this sense of necessity and determination and decision that this is it. And then I hear there is essentially no other work. There is this work, and all other work falls away. This is what they tell me. So, okay, I have some homework. So I sit on my little twin bed, room number 4 in the nunnery, and I begin to do my very basic little breathing and meditation exercises. And the second I start to do the very basic body movements, I begin to feel up and down my body this electric current. It's deeper than an electric current. It starts about this far off my body. It rolls up, and then it rolls down. The next time it rolls up, it's much bigger and much faster, and then it gets bigger and vaster and deeper and vaster, and pretty soon it's the size of the universe, up and down. And as it's rolling, it begins to bring in ancient information, and that information is, again, everything that we label negative that is born in the consciousness of separation. This time, however, I'm watching us create them as we're building our separation consciousness. I watch us build each and every single one of these energies as we're creating our reality. And the way that we put the dualistic construct to it is that we begin bringing in everything that we think is good in order to build up that which we think is negative in order to reject it. We build it up and we reject it. We build it up and we reject it over and over and over. I watch us build our entire reality from the ground up on this paradigm. Use the good to build up the bad, to reject it over and over. And as I'm watching, I see it fast forward all the way to today, and I see that these are the energies. This is the dynamic. This is the paradigm that paces the rhythms of our poetry. I watch it sweep the ballet dancer so dramatically across the stage. I see it in the magnificent conflict arcs of all of our books and our movies and our stories. I hear it in the lyrics to our favorite songs. I see it threaded so eloquently through religious doctrine. I see us use it like building blocks to build our economics, our education, our governance, our societal and cultural systems, all the systems of our world on that dynamic. And we know this because we all love the story of good trumps bad. Do we not? We love it when karma comes around to bite the bad guy. We relish that. We love when romance makes loneliness go away. We love Disney. You know you do. What I realize as I see this happening is that, of course, each and every one of those things that we label negative is the cry for union. And it is that very cry for union that we reject. And the way that we have this built-in model of self-rejection is that when we think we're bringing in love to heal the pain of separation, our fear, our judgment, our self-loathing, when we think we're loving that, what we're actually employing is a model of one part of us trying to make another part of us go away. We want the good in us to make the bad in us disappear. This is the paradigm of self-rejection. This is the paradigm of separation. And this is why I couldn't answer the question. Because the vantage point from which I was viewing that situation was separation consciousness. And my idea of love making the pain of separation go away was the paradigm of self-rejection. And rejection is the very thing that gives separation its life. It's also why I couldn't view the light and the block at the same time. Separation consciousness. As I put all these pieces together and everything is flowing up in my awareness, what I know perfectly well in that moment is that what we cry out for in our desire for union with love is our desire to unite with divine love. And divine love is something altogether different. It is not an action towards anything. I know very well what divine love is. I have been in and as it many times, through the mind of Buddha, through the body of Christ, the eyes of God, many, many times. Divine love is a state. It is a state of being. It is a state of being, first and foremost, unconditional. There are no conditions imposed on anything in the state of divine love. Secondly, is a state of equality, that everything is equal in its possibility and potential to exist in divine love. It is also the state of pure freedom. Everything is free to express what it is as it is in the field of divine love. It's also the state of pure unity, that everything is brought in a state of oneness with everything else. And it is the ultimate in acceptance of what is in this present moment. The state that we cry out for, our divine nature, the state of divine love is unconditional, equal, free, unified acceptance of what is in this present moment. This is what we cry out for. And when I remembered this, when all the pieces flowed together, I knew exactly what my piercing process was. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. In that moment, my job was to get my field, my being, in direct alignment with God, in direct alignment with my own divine nature, to get my field in the state of divine love. That in this moment, anything that comes into or arises in my field will be brought in unconditionally. I will impose no conditions on anything to exist in this field. Anything that rises in this field will be accepted as an equal in value and potential and possibility to exist. Everything that comes into or arises in my field is free to express what it is as it is. No oppression or suppression. Everything that comes into or arises in my field will be brought in a state of unity and oneness with everything else. I will accept in this present moment whatever comes into or arises in my field. And the second that I hit that mark, the second that I was in direct alignment with my own nature, again, everything starts coming around. All that we label negative that's born in the consciousness of separation. Fear, judgment, self-loathing. But this time they came one at a time. The first thing up was fear. And when fear hit this field, what happened was this. Bam! This pure explosion of fear. Everything, the purity of all the nuances of every kind of fear imaginable, everything that fear was holding, all the anger and resentment, such pure explosion of expression of what it is. But this time, it was mine. It was everything in my field, my life, and not just this lifetime, but everything in my entire existence, and all the ways that I am interwoven or entangled in the collective consciousness. Every speck of fear, every subtle little place, and then underneath it, all the pain. Every speck of pain in my life, my existence, and all the places that pain that I put there as a result of my relationship with fear was in the collective consciousness of humanity. It was such a stunning moment. All of that pain that I was responsible for. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was so stunned. I'm such a nice person. I'm such a kind person. What have I done? And I began to sob and sob and sob. All I kept saying was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Every speck of pain that I could see was like a living entity that had been sitting there rejected because of my relationship with fear. I sobbed and sobbed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And when I finally got down to the place where all I could say was, please forgive me, it was a request to myself, to the fear, to the collective, and most of all to that pain. When I got to that place where all I could say was this base of authentic forgiveness, what happened to that fear in my divine field was this. Poof. I was just absorbed into the energies around it. That was my piercing. Next up, bam, here comes fear. I got no break. Not fear, judgment. Here comes judgment. Bam, the full explosion of judgment. Everything it was holding in my life, my existence, and all the places in the collective consciousness. Again, the pain. Again, the sobbing. Again, I'm so sorry. Again, please forgive me. Poof. Self-loathing. Bam. This just went on and on and on. And sure enough, it took several days. Some of these things took just a few minutes. Some of these things took several hours. And some of them took several days coming back around for deeper iterations of cleansing. So when I finally got to the point where, at this stage of my life, this process, this clearing is finished, I walked out of my room at the nunnery, and everyone that I can see, whether it was at the nunnery, in the fields, in the villages, everywhere I went, I could see in people's energy fields, in the words that they were speaking, in the life that they were living, I could see with precise accuracy the kinds of separation consciousness that they're walking through life with and the simultaneous aspects of self-rejection that they're walking through life with. Everywhere I went. It was like, in the moment, it looked like flags. It looked like little white flags of surrender, saying, I'm ready. I'm ready for healing. It was a world all around me saying, I'm ready for healing. This is all about the healing of our self-rejection. So this year on my tour, I've made a decision to talk about something publicly that I have previously decided not to do, and that is to talk publicly about the scale of my own pain, my personal pain. In this 55-year-old vessel through which I have been walking through life, I have known pain on an incredible continuum. Starting from the time when I was a small child, my father, like many people, was very wounded. He cried out repeatedly for some kind of satiation with love that he never got. And that sense of failure and rejection came out in the form of brutality. So I was beaten numerous times to very dangerous levels with 2x4s and axes and stones, and this body bore the brunt of that pain for my father. So when I was much older, as an adult, I was hit by lightning, a direct hit. Of course, I was injured, but I'm not dead. And about a year and a half later, I had a very bad car accident in which I injured my spine from tip to tip. And I had to undergo rehab for 3 years before I could push a grocery cart forward or walk upstairs. But clearly you can see I moved just fine. After one of the 13 surgeries that I had toxic shock syndrome and very nearly died, but obviously didn't. And then just a few years ago at the office, at my work, I had a blood clot that went to my brain and had to be revived twice. And 5 years ago, for those of you who've read my story, you know that this is also going to be the raw part. That I took 97 prescription pain and sleeping pills. I am really tender with this group today. Thank you for allowing this vulnerability. I took 97 prescription pain and sleeping pills with 3 glasses of wine, and then I laid down and just thought that that was it. And then 2 days later, I just woke up. I woke up in incredible pain and with no ability to control my motor skills, but I was alive. So we've established that nothing can kill me. It's true. But then in the metaphysical realms, in the mystical experiences, you can imagine the kind of pain that I've seen in those realms. I have embodied the pain energies of entire continents. I embodied the body of Jesus at the crucifixion scene. It's the first thing I talk about in my book. The scale has been unfathomable of the pain in the mystical realms. But throughout all of this, from childhood into this adult body, into the metaphysical realms, I've experienced healing. Many different levels of healing, many different iterations of healing. But I've never, not for a single moment, experienced healing like I did after the events of April 25th, because that was healing at the origin of our human pain, the origin of our human suffering. That's why it's very clear to me that this is what I'm supposed to be speaking about on tour this year. And it's no accident. As soon as I got into alignment with this work, with this message, with this event, suddenly all of these wonderful invitations started opening up. My book is now being made into a movie, which happened right after I got this sort of piece going. Beautiful new communities that I'm meeting. It's very clear that this is the message that's supposed to get out this year, and I'm very happy to do that. So the ultimate takeaway here is that if we want a world in which love really is the answer, love really is all we need, then we need to know exactly what love is. And if we want to be part of that awakening experience on the individual basis, we need to know what it is to be that love. And we'll talk, we have a question and answer, I think, at 1 o'clock that's coming up. There's going to be a lot of questions that come out of this, I'm positive. And we'll talk a lot about sort of how to do that. But the most important piece that we have in this sort of awakening to be in alignment with our own divine nature has to do with the inquiry of willingness. That's really the only work that we have, the inquiry of willingness. Am I really willing to be completely unconditional about everything within me? Am I really willing to be a state of equality about everything within me? Am I really willing to allow everything within me to express freely what it is, as it is? Am I really willing to accept everything in this present moment is everything in a state of oneness? Am I really willing? And in the Q&A, I'll tell you how, no matter how earnest you are, you're going to find your no's in there. There's going to be a lot of no. But we'll talk more about that in depth. Now, before I go, I want to assure you that you can see how we're nearing our state of wholeness and alignment and how it relates to our individual work. What is your name, dear? You. Carly? Okay. Carly and I have had a fuss, and she did something terrible to me. I'm sorry, but it's true. This is just an example, obviously. I don't even know her. So let's say that Carly and I have had a conflict together. We now have an energy of conflict. What that looks like from a mystical perspective, the energy field, what the energy of conflict looks like, no matter where we are in the world, in our field of awareness, that energy looks like a knotted thread. It looks exactly like a knotted thread. And the energy of conflict, we have wound this thread around each of us in anger and blame and victimhood, etc. And as we move around in our life, we're just pushing and pulling and knotting that thread tighter and tighter. And Carly's on her end of the world telling everybody how awful I have been in this situation. And she's taken these little subsidiary threads of anger and victimhood and blame, and she's tying it around everybody around her. And I'm on my end telling everybody exactly the same kind of, I can't believe what she did. And around and around and around. And now we all have this wonderful knotted up entanglement of conflict energies just because Carly and I have a core thread between us. Understand? From a planetary basis, this is what we have looked like. We're all just knotted up in these energies of conflict. And you can imagine that doesn't vibrate very high. It doesn't flow. It can't open up. In this situation, if I, in this conflict with Carly, if I take the time, just me, to honestly, deeply, earnestly go within and own everything that I truly feel, and I get to that place eventually of pure forgiveness, and that forgiveness is not of Carly, because that would be a judgment that she did something wrong. It is just always and only forgiveness of myself, the way that I've perceived or behaved or whatever. When I get to that place of pure forgiveness for myself, what happens to that thread around me is that it just opens up and begins to flow, because now that thread has been transmuted to divine energies that flow. And as it opens up and flows around me, now Carly has nothing to push and pull against me. So naturally, her end of the thread begins to open up and flow as well. And as it opens up around Carly, it opens up naturally around the people that she was entangled with, and it's doing the exact same thing around all the people around me. And now we don't have this energy. Now we have this energy that flows everywhere, all because I did my own work. From a planetary basis, this is also what's happening now. We're seeing the opening of our planetary energies open and flow on magnificent scales all around the planet. And you know this because we can look all around our world And we see everywhere, in all corners of the world, in all faiths, in all spiritual teachings, conversations about unconditional love. Do we not? 200 years ago, nobody would have been talking about that. That's not a popular thing to talk about from the pulpit when you like to talk about sin and judgment. We can look all around our planet for the last 100 years, all that's been happening around equality, everywhere around the planet, based on gender, based on race, based on sexual orientation. It's at rocket speed relative to what it was for centuries and centuries and centuries. This freedom of expression is a very common thing that people talk about now. It's being led so beautifully by the transgendered community. Everywhere around the planet, free to express what we are, as we are, without having to conform or oppress or suppress. This idea, how many of you know about the teachings of oneness? It's in everything. I heard you talking about it earlier today. This unity and oneness, it's threaded through every teachings, every level. And entire industries have built on this idea of acceptance of what is in this present moment, the power of now. These are all the components of divine love, now part of our common vernacular, now part of our common conversations, all rising up because on an individual basis, more and more and more of us have been doing our work. We've been going in, we've been shifting, transmuting, owning who we are, getting to that joyous level of who we are. That's what this is all about. So we can talk much more about that in the Q&A, and I look forward to that. As you can tell, this is a very vulnerable process for me, so I just want to thank you for allowing me this space and holding me here. It's been a pleasure to be with you. May our time together be of benefit to all beings. Thank you.